Hey guys, welcome back to another Astra Militarum Tier List, the final one of 10th edition. Gonna try do this in under an hour, so just some stuff to talk about first of all. So this is primarily focused on Grizzled Company, because it is the best attachment. We will talk about Recon and Combined and Hammer, but this is mostly from the perspective of Grizzled, and it's also from the perspective of if you're a UK-based player playing on UKTC. Because stuff is going to be ranked completely different for the terrain formats. But yeah, this is focused on UKTC. And then the other thing is, it's a bit upsetting that they're not going to reset data sheets for 11th edition. I think there's a lot of units that we'll talk about that need updates, especially updated rules and price, but it is what it is. But I'm excited for the new models. I just hope the Taurox doesn't go to Legends when they replace it with the Centaur, but hopefully we get 3 usable transports instead of just 2, if you look at how many transports other armies get. But yeah, let's get straight into it. Cool, so I'm going to obviously try and keep it under an hour, so let's just get some of the easier ones out of the way. So the Aegis defense line is going to go straight in E, no hope tier. I'll just get all the ones in E off the bat straight away. So Aegis, Valkyrie, Wyvern, all 3 of these just don't actually do anything in 40k at the moment. This is just a meme unit, completely invalid. This has terrible rules and price point, with the way that disembarking and stuff works and deep strike and stuff, and this just is completely irrelevant indirect fire piece with no damage and not a good rule. So yeah, we'll put those straight in E, along with the strike fighter. Do you know what? Well, the strike fighter actually has a bit of use, right? It's 130 points, which is fairly cheap for what it does. It gets like 2 las cannons, I think in a heavy bolt or something like that. The problem is that this is almost definitely going to go to Legends. I think they just didn't Legends it just to say we had a fighter, while all the other armies had one. But this will go to Legends probably. It's just bad. It just doesn't do anything really, does it? So, cool. The priest as well. He's just useless. He doesn't need to be in this army. He's an Imperial Agents model. He buffs melee, and in guard there isn't too much that wants to be in melee, and the stuff that does he can't actually attach to. As much as it would be cool to have sustained hits on a unit like Rough Riders or Bulgarin, he can't attach them things, so he only attaches to battle line infantry. And they don't want to be in melee, so yeah. So let's start getting into some actual units now. Let's talk about the Cadian Command Squad. So with the Command Squad, it's pretty much just a unit you use to attach other characters you want into units, right? Purely because for order economy, getting your orders out 24 is just really, really good. You know, you're ordering from your backfield onto your expansion or the midboard. Sometimes you can, most of the time to be honest, you can actually reach their expansion and be ordering stuff over there. He's really good unit to combine stuff like Ursula, Commissars, Lord Solar in, for obvious reasons. And then apart from that, you know, they're fairly cheap, 65 points. You have to take the Vox, obviously, but that's something you want to do. And then you get, you know, like 2 special weapons, basically. My personal loadout is Power Fist, Plasma Pistol on the Commander, Power Fist and Plasma Pistol on the Veteran Sergeant, and then I will either keep the flag if I'm playing Grizzled with just 1 brick of infantry, because it can be a useful unit to try and like out-OC someone if you go second. But if I'm playing a recon, I'll take the plasma, because then you're getting quite a lot of plasma shots out of this unit, which is pretty cool. And then obviously you got the med pack, so you can revive D3, which is always nice, especially flipping objectives. And you've got their ability, which is also pretty good. Getting automatic cover on objectives is really, really strong in recon, especially. But you know, which is good all the time. So yeah, definitely an S data sheet. I'm not going to put it in S+, because outside of like the abilities it has, it doesn't really do too much damage, and obviously it's just 5 guardsmen, and paying 65 for 5 guardsmen is, yeah, it's not actually that good when you think about it, so. Let's talk about the Katachan command squad. So this is a command squad where you can have every single guy with a special weapon, which is pretty cool. And their ability is Assault, and obviously they have Scout 6. The problem with these guys that doesn't make them as good as the Cadian command squad is, first of all, the unit they attach to. Katachans and Cadians have a vastly different role. Your Katachans are going to be pushing up forward, whereas your Cadians are not straight away. So having a command squad sitting in your home field with Cadians is a good deal, whereas having 10 Katachans sitting in your home field with Scout is just, you're wasting them at that point. That being said, they do have a little niche role where, with another unit we'll talk about, they make quite a good mid-board like skirmishing unit for 105 points. Can't go wrong with that. But I think at that price point, there's a lot of other skirmishing units that do their job for them and do it better. But this, with that unit with like 3 heavy flamers, 4 heavy flamers, something like that, is fairly annoying to deal with, especially in certain metas where you're playing against stuff like Eldar and Drakari that needs to be overwatched constantly. This can be a good unit. But so yeah, I'm going to put it in stronger in certain metas, because it is stronger in certain metas. This will be a better unit when other things get nerfed, and probably will get nerfed, their competition, so, but they can go and see for now. Let's talk about Kree command squad as well. So the Kree command squad, I think, it's just one of them weird ones, right? Because they don't provide much value to the Krieg. Like, allowing yourself to be ordered when you're battle shocked is fine, but it doesn't come up enough for it to be valuable, right? And then you get to the other point of, in UKTC, you don't take Krieg really grizzled, because on Games Workshop, 20 Krieg on your expansion, solid strat. In UKTC, the actual space for sitting on these objectives without exposing yourself to line of sight is fairly limited. So it's better to have like smaller unit volume with higher OC, and having a 6-man Krieg command squad with a 10 or 20 man of Krieg is just too many units. Yeah. The other thing to mention though is you do get an extra model, and the Servo Scribe's ability where you get to double order once, which I think actually does turn into a triple order in Grizzled, is good. If you need orders, I guess. But yeah, the biggest problem is that the other command squad's med pack provides their units with region, but the Krieg already have it built in, which is sort of makes these guys invalid, really, because the med pack guy giving a 6-up feel no pen against moles is just bad. So I'm actually going to put these up to here. Nah, I'm going to put the Krieg command squad in D tier. I just don't see a role for it, in all honesty. Because in Recon, your Castellan bricks have enough orders to order Krieg. If you're taking them, you're getting 12 orders from your Castellan bricks. In Grizzled, you're going to have enough orders to order Krieg if you need to. So, anyway, speaking of the Castellan, so this guy's pretty much used in 2 roles. You do sometimes see him in Grizzled with Lord Hailer enhancement, so he's triple ordering 12, just as a 65-point unit. I mean, that's super hard to do properly. 12 inches just isn't enough for orders, unless you're playing some weird spam infantry on the middle objective and sit this guy behind the big ruin build, but that doesn't work, in my opinion. So I think in Grizzle he's a bit of a hit and miss, but where he does shine is Recon. So in Recon, this unit with a 20-man brick of Cadians and a 5-man command squad is elite. So he gives the unit sustained, which helps for the fact that you're probably giving them the rapid fire order, hitting on 4s. So the sustain helps with the shot conversion. And then secondly, the ability to fall back and shoot is pretty nice for them big 20 bricks that you're going to be spamming. It pretty much means like your opponent can't charge into you with like a bad unit to lock you up, which is really, really good. It basically means your big 20 bricks aren't doing nothing. And then when you think as well, that unit combo is only like 250 points, I think. Yeah, 65. He costs 65. Aussie costs 55. I think he only costs 55. 240 points. That is really good value. It's just like a big stat check for can your opponent actually kill this. So yeah, that being said as well, he has 4 wounds, which is actually really important because it means he doesn't one-shot himself with his plasma. And he has a power fist, and he hits on 3s. So yeah, I think he's a good choice. So let's do Lord Marshal Dryer. He needs to go in D-tier. Yeah. If you want my opinions on Dryer, just go back and watch other tier lists. He's just bad. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't do enough damage for his points. Is way too many points, and his orders on his data sheet are basically invalid based off what he can attach to. Okay, Ursula. Ursula's fine. It's just one of those things, like Ursula being 85 just really actually annoys me. It seems like her being 85 causes so many issues for me when I'm building lists on UKTC. Like, I'm always 5 points over, I've got 15 points left, or 10 points left. It's just annoying. I think she's pretty much auto-including combined for the pseudo CP farm you have going in it, where you just target her unit with Fields of Fire and a tank, and you just generate CP, because you attach it to a brick of 20 Cadians. Which is pretty good, to be honest. But in Grizzled, I have ran her in Grizzled. I pretty much don't think you see it at all anymore. It was one of those things where like people would bring her when Grizzled first got released because it's like 4 regiment orders, nice. Free strat in a CP hungry detachment, nice. But you don't get too much value out of the free strat, to be honest. And she just costs too many points for orders. Like, in most of the UKTC builds, you're not bringing that many regiment blobs, unless you're playing like Doombolt Guard. But you don't even see her in Doombolt, man. Because like in Doombolt, you don't even need orders on a lot of your stuff. So yeah, I think she's good, just because of how strong she is in combined. But I would be hesitant to bring her in other detachments. Yeah. Commissar. Yeah, here we go. So, Commissar, first of all, he's cheap as... I think he's one of the cheapest characters in 40k. He's the second cheapest thing in the Codex, after the Demolition Vehicle. Just think, this guy's cheaper than a fucking Munistorm Priest, bro. Like that, explain that one. His actual datasheet doesn't do much. Like, he gets a little power weapon and a plasma pistol, and he hits on 3s, so like, maybe he kills a marine for you. And the cancel battle shock rule is like, can be helpful, but not always. I think in like the 30 games of Grizzled that I played, it's come up twice, ever. Especially because the way that I run him is I run him in my Cadian blob at the back, just giving his orders out 24, so I can't be precisioned. So he pretty much never actually unbattle shocks something. However, he has 2 orders in Grizzled, and the enhancement where you let him order Bulgrin is in Elite, because they just turn Bulgrin into an absolute monster. Without him, Bulgrin are sort of bad, to be honest, or just irrelevant. Like, they just don't do anything. So he's going in S+, because he just is a 50 point with the enhancement unit that basically improves your army with Bulgrin by about 25% probably. So yeah, he's just really strong. But yeah, a tip is don't have him actually with the Bulgrin, because if you're against someone who knows what they're doing, he's just going to get precision straight away, because he's like a 5-up infant with 4 wounds or something. So yeah, Gaunts, another really strong unit. I love Gaunts. Just really good, like bringing them in at the end of your movement phase and ordering something that needs an order, like Kazakin jumping out of a transport, or Tillian Rough Riders, like giving them move to get into somewhere, stringing them back, and then giving them fix. Helps save you a lot of CP, not spamming the snap to it strat. They also do a lot of damage. They're really good at secondaries with the uppy downy. And then they have infiltrate as well. One of the only things in the codex has infiltrate. So in a lot of matchups, you'll just infiltrate them onto your expansion if they don't have a super mobile unit that can threaten them. And then their damage is actually okay. Especially into stuff like Drakarian Sisters. Your opponent has to really think about charging them because of the fights first and their strength 3 melee. So, but yeah, these guys are S+. Like, I think I've seen them in every list in the past like 2 or 3 months. They're probably a bit undercosted in all honesty. Lord Solar. Lord Solar's good. You do see him more on Games Workshop in all honesty, but you see him pretty much in every Hammer list. And you see him occasionally in Combined. He just has a lot of orders, so you can spam tanks really efficiently. I think the spam tank build on UKTC is not as good as other builds, but on GW I get why it's really good. And then obviously CP, nice, and a very CP hungry detachment. My issue with him is that on mission 1 and 4 on UKTC, it's a little bit harder to keep him out of combat and out of line of sight with how big his base is, and then because of where you want to place him, it's actually quite difficult to get him involved in combat later on, because obviously he's mounted. But I totally get why people use him. The issue I personally have with him and why I don't run him is that I think for what he actually does, 130 is too much. Like, he's tough, he has a good lot of orders, he gives you CP, and the redeploys is okay, but you never really get much value out of them in most UKTC matches. But I think he's strong. I think he's better than Ursula in the Castellan. It's just one of those things. Like, I personally don't like him, but I get why people run him. I actually have his model, and I don't think I've ever used it in a game. Well, not since Grizzled's come out, which is kind of sad, but yeah. Bro, okay, we'll leave this one till later. Marbo. Marbo is weird. His datasheet just doesn't reflect his like lore presence, if you get what I mean. Like, he doesn't do any damage. He pretty much just infiltrates onto an objective for you and then folds like paper mache. Because he's like T3 with 3 wounds and a 5-up with no invul. I think on UKTC is pretty useless compared to other things that are going to do his role, like Gaunt's Ghost do his role in a lot of matchups and do it better and cause a lot of issues, whereas he doesn't. Like, your opponent's going to charge like literally anything into this guy and confidently kill him, which isn't what you want really. His shoot back ability is bad because of the range of his pistol, means whatever he's shooting at can shoot Marbo anyway, so they're just going to shoot Marbo. He gives up Assassinate too easily. He gives up anything like no prisoners, overwhelming too easily. Yeah, he's just bad, isn't he? He does have a certain role, which is why I'm going to put him in C, where if you're playing GW on certain layouts where you know you're not going to be able to sit on your expansion, he is good, because obviously your opponents have to come close to deal with him, which is what you want as a guard player. Then your opponent coming close but not close enough to charge you, and then you hit back with your with your your hammers. But yeah, stick them in C. Paramount Psycho D. This is another unit where it's like, why? It's just another unit where it's like, why, isn't it? Like, just bad. Doesn't do anything you want. Too likely that she kills herself. Let's talk about the engines here. This thing, I think, has been the exact same place in every single one of my tier lists, which is A tier. Probably about here. He just is good at giving a unit a 4-up invuln. And he is stronger in certain metas, right? Like, he's stronger in metas where you're playing against a million Repexes or a load of Vindicators or just a ton of like AP 5 Mellors or something crazy, like Retail Kader Tau. But he's just sort of all good all the time as well. Giving Dawns a feel no pain is pretty good. Healing them is also pretty good. So yeah, and then in Grizzled, with how tough they are anyway, it kind of cancels him out a bit. But if you have 45 points, put him in, especially if you have 2 Dawns. A lot of people sleep on giving just giving a Chimera an invuln as well. Causes, like, if you go first, give this thing to a Chimera, scout it aggressively, leave it in the open, your opponent is like, oh, how do I kill this thing that has a 4-up invuln and 11 wounds? How much do I commit? It's kind of hard for them to gauge. So yeah. So let's do all the battle line actually at the same time. So we've sort of talked about these, talking about the command squads, but Cadians, in Grizzled, having a unit, well, in every detachment, having a unit of them is good because they sticky your backfield, which is nice. Only thing with sticky on its datasheet. Obviously, has the ability to attach the Cadian command squad, which is like auto-include by itself. And then, like, it has more special weapons than the Catachan do, and has the same amount as the Krieg. So yeah, and they're cheaper than Krieg. So yeah, they're going to go in S. Catachans. So Catachans, their ability to scout is good. It's actually one of the only things in the Codex that has scout, apart from Kazakin, I think. Let me just have a think. And the Scout Sentinel. Yeah, so 3 things and Krieg Engineers, 4 things with Scout. But obviously these are a 10-man Scout, so they're really good at screening, maybe getting on an early objective and terraforming it, cancelling out your area denials for your opponent. They just have a lot of utility, but they don't do any damage. Like, they have 1 Het Flamer, you know. But they're going to go in S as well. I'm actually going to put them above the Cadians. And then Krieg. Should we just say as well, for recon, you normally see 1 unit of these, you normally see 3 units of these, and then your entire rest of your list is full of Krieg. Just because Krieg are really good to spam as just a 10-man, whereas these are better to spam as a 20-man. They come with the D3 region built in, which is really good on a 65-point datasheet. And then obviously they do a bit more damage than the others with their ability, which is decent. Problem is, in UKTC, you don't really need a 10-man Krieg walking around, because you have a 10-man Cadian brick and you have a 10-man Catachan brick, and then you fill out your rest of your list with more efficient damage dealers, basically. That being said, you do see a 10-man. I think it's a good choice, really. I'll probably put it up here. Okay. Let's talk about the engineers. Me personally, I'm not convinced on Doombolt Guard. I think it's a weird way to play the game, and it's sort of a bit of a stat check in how many mortal wounds you do, which is why I don't like it. I prefer to play like a more honest version of Warhammer. But these things are good. Yeah, they're just cheap as hell. 60 points to do a lot of mortal wounds. And then on top of that, like, They have a couple little nice weapons. You have a flamer and a hand flamer, which is decent at killing chaff. And then they have 5 OC, which is also good for a 60-point unit. So yeah, I'm going to put it in average unit. It's a list filler, basically. It's a list filler for Doombolt, just to get even more mortal wounds in. So they're going to go in there. People might disagree with me on that one, but that's where they're going. Let's talk about Death Riders. Death Riders are just like a tech piece, really, like move blocking. A lot of armies like to have that like cheap unit that you just move block with, and these do that fairly well. Because obviously they have a flat 6 reactive, which is nice, and they have big enough bases where you can actually move block really well. 10-inch move, which is also good, not as good as Rough Riders, and they don't do as much damage as Rough Riders, so use them in a very different way. But I think you get diminishing returns with more than one of these guys. It's basically that point where it's like you have 60 points left, so you put one of these in as a tech piece if you already think you have enough damage in your list. Because that's 60 points. They compete fairly well with all the units at 60 points, like Rough Riders, Krieg Engineers. Like they're all like good in their own way. So I'm going to put it in average. I'll put Kriegers better than them though. Well, I'll talk about Rough Riders. Completely different role. These things are an absolute menace. I love them. I was running a 10-man for a long time, and then I've recently switched to 2 5-mans to sort of go to a more training style of list, like a more MSU version. These things just delete stuff. Like their kill list currently of 5-mans currently consists of a 1-shot in a Ghost Keel, 160-point unit, 1-shotting a Triarch Stalker, doing 16 wounds to Rotigus, a 5-man, by the way, 16 wounds to Rotigus. I think they killed like 3 Deathwing Knights as well. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's luck involved in all of that, but at 60 point, these things having 5 attacks on 2, strength 9, lance AP 4, d6 damage is just ridiculous. And then on top of that, they're not just anti-tank hunters, they have the frag lance, and they get an extra 10 attacks of extra attack. Yeah, they're just, and they move fast, they move 12 with possible 15. Hitting on 3's base, you're always going to give them the +1 to hit, re-rolling 1s as well, so their conversion is amazing. Strength 9 lance is an insanely good break point. Yeah, these things are fucking class. Like, I don't want to put them in S+ because I can't bring myself to do that, but based on what else I'm going to put in here, and I think these 2 units are a league above these guys because of how swingy they sometimes are, but they're going to go an S for me, top of S for sure. Basilisk, yeah, I kind of think the Basilisk is actually alright. Like, a lot of people hate it, but yeah, for what it does it fairly well. Like, it's just really good at countering melee rush armies like World Eaters. It's got a really decent profile into Marines, re-rolling 1s and Grizzled as well. It just costs too many points, really, doesn't it? Like, 140 points, you're probably not even going to recoup. It might take you 3 turns to recoup that of 3 turns of indirect firing. It needs an order, which sort of means you kind of have to have either a Rogaldon sitting near it the entire game, or Lord Solar. Which is its own problem. But I think it's one of them where it's the epitome of being strong in certain metas, right? Because into your Marine melee rush metas, like if you find yourself in a meta where there's loads of Blood Angels, loads of World Eaters, what else? If there's loads of like Gladius Marines that Bastion Task Force Black Templars are running around, yeah, then obviously this thing's really good into that. But if you're playing into like Eldar, Drakari, Sisters, Guard, Knights, this thing is just going to be a complete waste of points. And at the moment, those armies are actually useful. Necrons, this thing's rubbish as well. So it's just not. We're not there. This is going to say other actually. Right, cool. Cyclops Demolition is just a 25-point unit you put in your recon list, so your opponent can't read you or bring it down. So it's the definition of an average list filler at 25. It's also good into surge metas because you force people to surge into it. Death Strike is bad. I'll put it up here though. It's just like it doesn't do enough damage for the size of the missile that's on it. And after it's shot its missile, it's a waste of points. And you're not going to kill 150 points of shit with this missile unless your opponent is dumb enough to put like 8 units on top of it and then let you shoot. So yeah. Let's do Ogre and Bodyguard and Nork. These things are pretty good. Nork is seeing a bit more use now in Grizzled, which I kind of like. And his headbutt's pretty good. He's good with like... He's actually fairly good in Doombolt, surprisingly. Especially into transports he's good, because you try and chip it down, headbutt to finish it off, and then charge into what comes out. Sorry, pile into what comes out. Which is like pretty nice. And then I like the Ogre and Bodyguard, especially in Recon. Just making your command squads way more annoying to kill is nice. So I think they both sort of go in here. They're just an average unit. They do their job fairly well. I think they're better on Games Workshop Terrain, but yeah. 60 points for Nork. Nork's really good, but he's quite expensive. So yeah, they'll go here. Let's do the heavy weapons teams. Where's the Krieg? Can't see it. Do I not have the Krieg on? Oh, it's there. Yeah, so the Krieg. We'll start with the Krieg. Krieg. They don't get the mortar, so they have a completely different role. It's pretty much heavy flamer spam. It was better in Grizzled when you got the reroll ones to wound, but now that's gone. You don't even see these guys anymore. They're fairly good with a Quill on Eye, though. Is that the name of this strat enhancement? I think it is. Like putting a Quill on Eye in a command squad, giving it to them. That comes with its own problems, though, because you have to pretty much start them in reserve and spend a CP to get the order on them, or just somehow move them to where they can shoot with a 3-inch or 4-inch move. But yeah, 18-inch flamer, really good Overwatch threat. A bit swingy though with the 3d6, but it is what it is. These things are actually really good at mech, believe it or not. With the +1 to wound, it's pretty scary for Marine armies, especially because you're winning them on 2s most of the time with the +1. So yeah, I'm going to put it in average. I'll put it in good choice actually, because in mech it's actually really powerful. Like in mech you have 3 units of these guys, because of how much work they do. But it'll be the bottom of A, sorry. And then these guys are pretty much have the same role. Cad-Chan and Cadian weapons teams. They are mortar teams basically. You never take any other weapon. People who take las cannons on Cad-Chan heavy weapons are idiots. They just don't do anything. Too swingy. You maybe get 1 las cannon wound through if you're lucky, and your opponent has a 50% chance of saving it normally. So what's even the point? And then they just get picked up. Too easy to score secondaries off. But having indirect mortar spam in your backline is pretty good. In Grizzled, obviously. Nice. In Bridgehead, it's nice. Yeah. Also, added benefit of screening your backfield. That's pretty much where it ends for the Cadian team, right? Because the Cadian team ends there, and their rule is really bad. Their rule is completely useless. So for that reason, they go in D because of how outcompeted they are by the Cad-Chan version. So they cost the same as well. So the Cad-Chan version gets all of what I just said, but it has Scout 6, which is relevant because if you're in a matchup where these guys don't do anything, you basically use them like you use a unit of 10 Cad-Chan. You scout them up, you jump on the middle, you terraform it, you get established locus, you get area denial, and then they die, and you're fine with that. Obviously, if you're in a matchup where they matter, cool, you sit them on the back, they do work, but they also get reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1, the wound being relevant in Grizzled now, against monsters and vehicles. So say you've got, I don't know, say you're playing a Guard Mirror, and you've got a Chimera on 1 wound, you shoot the mortars on it, and it has a fairly decent chance of killing it, which can be like game changing, to be honest. But also really good into like Eldar, Tau, Pathfinder spam, Breacher spam, good into Drakari especially. So yeah, I'll put these guys in A, because I feel like they're the definition of average, to be honest. I'll put them below Nork though. Cool. Let's talk about the other indirect. We got the Field Ordnance and, well, the Manticore, Field Ordnance, and the Artillery team. So I'll put the Artillery team straight in D. Sorry, Artillery team. We'll put the Manticore straight in D tier. This thing got destroyed when the Codex came out. It's just bad. Does no damage. Has the same stat line as the Artillery team, but costs way more because you're paying for the hull. And has anti-infantry 2+, but it's strength 12. The Artillery team, so you're winning most infantry in the game on a 2 anyway. So it's completely outcompeted for nearly half the price. So the Artillery team, I like it. It's my preferred form of indirect in certain metas. But I do admit the Field Ordnance is mathematically better. But it's just a bit too swingy, really, isn't it? Because you take the Siege Cannon. If you're taking the Heavy Mortar, you just take a Field Ordnance, right? Strength 12, AP2, damage 3 is really good, especially on an indirect weapon. It's a huge base, so it screens your backfield pretty well. And yeah, the Battle Shock thing is kind of a useless rule, but it can be relevant sometimes, I guess. But yeah, it's just the D6 shots is way too swingy. But you know, say you shoot a unit of Custodes and you get a 6 on that thing, and you might kill 2 of them. So yeah, and then it's already paid for itself, which has happened before for me a fair few times actually. So I'm going to put it in average. Nah, I'm going to put it in stronger in other metas, I think, at the top, because if you're in a 3 wound meta, this thing can make sense to bring it, like especially if you're playing into Black Templars with loads of Sword Brethren that might not be in transports, or Custodes. Obviously they always put on the shield guy, but yeah. Who else? I think Votan be good against Votan, I suppose. Yeah, there's just them 3 wound model armies, 3 wound model armies is good into, and we're not really in one of them. I guess Land Raider spam's a thing, but they're inside Land Raiders, so okay. And then the Field Ordnance I'm going to put in average. You can't really put it in good just because it just flat out doesn't have the damage output. But it's got sustain, 2d6 plus blast, strength 7, AP1, damage 2. Fairly good at chipping Marines down. So yeah, might kill like 2 or 3 Marines with it. Bet obviously it's just more versatile into different armies. Like it's good into Marines. It's still got enough shots to be good into Chaff. And like it has enough shots to potentially kill a couple elites. So it's just good. It's the best all round artillery piece, isn't it? Really. Cool. Sentinels. Armor is just useless at the moment. Just with the way cover works in the game, making las cannons AP2, these things just don't have enough output, especially with their terrible ballistic skill. And then order economy, I guess, is kind of annoying, ordering an armored sentinel around. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I think they're just bad. They're the top of being bad, but they're just bad. I was really thinking about running them, but they just don't fit, really. they just don't. They're not reliable enough at killing stuff. Scout Sentinel. So this thing scouts 9, or 8, which is fantastic. And it's actually annoying to kill. It's like T7 with 7 wounds, which is, yeah, annoying. Your opponent has to put something real out to kill it. Obviously the ability is really good as well. Rerolling hit rolls of 1. In Grizzled it's completely cancelled out, but in Combined these things are auto-include. So for that reason I'm going to put them in S. Yeah, they're actually pretty good in UKTC as well. And then on top of that, for 55 points you get a las cannon and a hunter killer, so can't complain really, can you? Yeah, I'll probably put it A. Because yeah, do you only really no it has to go in S for how good it is in the other detachments. Let's talk about the Hellhound. You don't see this thing anymore. It costs too many points really, and for the points it costs 125, it doesn't do any damage. You're pretty much paying 125 to strip cover, and in Grizzled you can do that for a CP. I'd rather spend a CP than have this thing sitting on my list at 125. That being said, it's fairly tough. It's T10, 11 wounds, I think it has a 2-up. So it's pretty tough, pretty good tank shock, little tank shock unit, like frontline tank. But if I'm going to bring one, it's not going to be in Grizzled. It'll be in Hammer, maybe in Combined. So yeah, I'll put it in. I'll put it in A though, because its actual ability is pretty good. Yeah, be the bottom of A though. And then the Hydra. Yeah, I feel like it's the definition of strong in another meta, because it is cheap. It's almost like a mobile chassis tank that you sit on in a point. So in a meta where there's infantry spam and people aren't teching against tanks and heavier stuff, spamming these is really strong because it forces your opponent, especially if you have 3 of them, it forces your opponent to make decisions. But in a meta where there's loads of Satan, Ultramarine, Vindicators and Rapexes and Guard is still fairly strong, it's just not it. Like, these things are going to get folded like paper mache. And then even though they reroll hit rolls and have anti-fly 2+, it's AP1 damage 3, so if you shoot stuff that flies, yeah, you're still not doing much, are you? Like, into Satan, these things don't do anything. I guess Tower are becoming quite good in the meta, but yeah, I think it needs to be a combination of, like, there's other fly stuff in the meta that's strong, and there's not enough tanky stuff in the meta that's strong for these things to be good. But I think they're okay in Combined and Hammer, just not in Grizzled. Cool. Let's talk about Ogren. So Ogren are just cheap as chips. 60 points for 3 lads that are fairly hard to kill, I guess, because they're T6 with Feel No Pain. And they're pretty useless in every detachment except mech, because you can get them to reroll the hit and wound in mech, and obviously the actual stat line on the weapons is pretty strong. It's like, if you get in rapid fire, it's like 6 attacks each, AP2 damage 2, strength 5, which is pretty good breakpoint. And with the +1 to wound and obviously all the hit and wound rerolls, you're gonna do some serious work. Especially with a 60-point unit, like, you're gonna punch up with them. Like, you're gonna be killing 150, 200-point units, which is really cool. So I'm gonna put them in A. The mech, I feel like this A tier is just the mech tier at this point, and I think mech is actually a pretty good way of playing guard. Probably put them here. I think, yeah, I can get there. I think actually, yeah, sure, I can get there. And I'm going to move the Krieg Flamers down to B. Cool. Well, I think it's transport time. So Chimera Prime Torox. So Torox Prime first of all. Gonna go here. If we're playing in the meta of Mechanized Assault and Bridgehead Strike, then this thing will be used. In any other meta existent, it will not, purely because it serves no purpose. Its ability is bad. You reroll hit rolls with stuff that disembarks from it. your disembarking scions, which are hitting on 2s most of the time, and reroll 1s in Bridgehead and Grizzled. So that only time it's useful is a Meg. This is not enough. I guess it's got like some guns on this thing, but that doesn't justify the cost, especially if you just take another transport, which is normally 10 to 15 points cheaper than this thing. So yeah, it's not doing much, is it? I'll probably, yeah. It's just I haven't seen one for donkeys. I think the last time we saw one was when the rain and Bridgehead. But yeah. The Chimera and the Taurox. So I feel like with this it's very personal preference. So, and also terrain layout dependent, especially. So on UKTC, I think Chimeras actually require more skill to pilot than a Taurox, because Tauroxes are going to deliver whatever you need to 90% of the time, because you stage, they move like flipping 15 inches with move plus an advance. So it's like 18-inch move plus 3-inch disembark, like 21 inches. You're going to get across the board to any expansion on the map. But they are easier to kill than Chimeras. They have 1 less wound, 1 less toughness, which actually does matter, because T9 melters are now wounding you on 4s. And strength 4 guns are now wounding you on 6s. Where what was I saying? Yeah, no, just the strength 9. You don't really find strength 8 weapons, but the strength 9 is wounding you on 4s, which is a big deal. And you also get a lot more shooting power, and you get the firing deck. So firing deck is normally only going to be used by more skilled players, in my opinion, and the extra double heavy flamer in certain matchups is crucial. Like that Drakari matchup, the Chimera becomes your best unit, like genuinely, because you just sit inside that transport and you just firing deck out of it, and you just overwatch people when they're sending 10 witches in, and you clear half. And then obviously you get the Lasgun Array, you get your Heavy Stubby, you get your Hunter Killer, which is a lot of guns for only 10 points more. The problem is it has 2 inches less of movement. It's a bigger base, so it's a little bit harder to maneuver, and it doesn't have the advance rule. It has basically a rule you're never going to use, which is ordering stuff outside of it. But to be honest, I think if it was a better rule, this thing would go up like a ridiculous amount of points, and no one wants that. So it's just good. Its stat line is just good by itself. So I'm a Chimera player. So I'm going to put the Taurox in S, because it is a strong data sheet. And I'm going to put the Chimera in S+, because I personally prefer it. I'm going to put the Taurox here. But, yeah. So, cool, let's talk about Rattlings. Rattlings are just a Sly Marbo counterpart that are better. 5 points more for actual damage. Well, it's not damage, but you can precision a cheap leader out with them. And then obviously the move, shoot, move, pretty good ability, especially at move blocking. I mean, they are pretty small bases, so it's harder said than done. But in one game, I had a unit of Rattlings on mission 3 UKTC. They infiltrated on my expansion. I was playing an AdMech player. He had an Onaga Dune Crawler, the Ferromite Destructor tank, can't remember what it's called, and some Skitarii in a Dune Rider. They were all about to flood my expansion. And I moved these guys in, shot, moved again, and they completely blocked his entire army from getting on that objective, and it scored me like primary for another 2 turns basically. So then I had another unit move on, and then I shot his stuff and killed a lot of it on the next turn. So yeah, they're just a cool unit, aren't they? Everyone loves Rattlings. I feel like they're just the definition of the best average unit. and what they do, because they infiltrate, but compared to other armies infiltrate units like combi lieutenants, they aren't as good. Yeah, this is definitely a. Now, do you know what? They're going an A. I did have them on my list for a long time. I did cut them when the nerfs happened, so the Rogal Dawn commanders, but I still think they're decent. I'd probably say they're better than these two. But yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about every single Russ. So, quick ones out the way. The Punisher is probably one of the worst units in the Codex. It's only really held up by how cheap it is. The Eradicator is just strong in a meta where it's full shooting dominated with no ignores cover, which I don't think has existed in 10th edition. Might be wrong. It's just, obviously it's really strong in that specific win condition, but its gun doesn't do too much damage except into marine bodies. So yeah, it's just not good, is it? And then the Demolisher. The Demolisher is probably, in my opinion, the top of D, because it fits two of these criteria, right? It's overcosted. Thing's 190 points, bro. 190 points for a Lehman Russ is pretty harsh. And then the actual gun. So if the rule is bad, like the rule's okay. Like shooting with no penalty in melee is fine. It doesn't come up that much, but it's fine. And if people know about that rule, they're never going to charge this thing. Which I guess is some sort of deterrent. But then the Demolisher Cannon being D6+1 is the big issue because it's too swingy. You'll expose it, so one time it might one-shot whatever you look at, and then another time it does 0 damage because you roll 2 shots and you miss one of them and you fail the wound. Too swingy. The Commander is infinite. Yeah, the Commander's D. Yeah. I think I'm being harsh to the Greek command squad looking at this. Commander's 100% D. Just because the cost of this thing needs to come down by. I've said this so many times, like, I don't want to repeat myself. It's way over cost. It's probably the least efficient unit in the Codex for the points trades you're going to get out of this. If the Demolisher Cannon gets buffed, then this gets buffed. It basically is how it feels. Cool battle tank. So this thing combined is pretty good. Rerolling lethals is nice. It's got a good ability. It's got a good main gun, especially in combined when you can buff the AP. Grizzled, not sold. Yeah, rerolls anyway. You don't get lethals, and the AP one is an issue because you don't want to spend CP to strip cover really. But you can do. So I'm going to put it in A, just because probably around here, just of how good it is in combined. It's probably auto-include, probably what S to S plus in combined. Executioner, it's another one where it's better in combined because of the lethals. Just because Strength 8 isn't that good. It's kind of a weak break point. Shooting into Marines with this thing isn't really what you want to be doing with the 170 point Russ, and it's pretty useless at shooting into anything else, especially outside of combined. So I think it's an average unit because it's pretty useless in every other detachment, and it's okay it's good in combined, but it's not as good as the battle tank. So I think it's probably sits about here. The Vanquisher. Vanquisher is really good. Cheap, which is what you want. Good cannon. It's a bit weird because into invulns it's too swingy in my opinion, but you still have good anti-tank with it. I had one in my list for a long time, got rid of it for Scions, but that's just a personal thing. I still think the Vanquisher's good. In Hammer, triple heavy flamer build's really good. Not that good in combined, but in Grizzled, good, because you re-rolling the hit roll makes it pretty reliable at getting your main cannon through on stuff. It's really good into like standard marine hulls and things that don't have invulns, like Sisters tanks. I know they have a 6-up invuln, but come on. Yeah, and obviously good strength, good AP, crazy good damage. Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's an 145 point unit that's T11 with 13 wounds and a 2-up. So even if it dies, you're not crying about it. So yeah, I'm gonna put the Vanquisher in S, probably about here, I think. It's pretty common to see 3 of these on GW, but on UKTC you don't see that many spammed. You might see 1 or 2, but not that often. And then the Exterminator. Buffing AP is a really good rule, especially in combination with Dawns. The problem is, and it does good damage as well. The gun actually does more damage than it appears on the datasheet. It's just too expensive, in my opinion. 180 points to buff AP is a bit too much. I get it's cheaper than the normal battle tank, but it doesn't do as much damage as the battle tank. And yeah, it's just you might see one in Combined and Hammer, but I think I did run one in Grizzled for a bit, and it just didn't feel as good. I think it's still good, but it'll fit about here. I think just a bit lower than the battle tank. All the Baneblade variants. We'll do this quick. Stormlord. Okay, on UKTC these are all in E-tier, but I'll put the ones that are terrible in E-tier. So first off, normal Hellhammer and Baneblade are shit. Yeah. Do you know what? I'm just going to put them all in here. There's only 3 that I would consider even using. First one is the Stormlord in Mech. So I'll put that in C tier. And I think the Bane Sword and the Storm Sword, yeah, these are like 3 that are the most usable. So they can go in C, and then everything else can go in E. I guess on other metas, I sort of mean other terrain layouts where they can fit, which are sort of non-existent. But yeah, in Grizzled they're funny, re-rolling their hits. So yeah, okay, Scions. These things are really good. Now that you lost the reroll ones to wound from Grizzled, they feel better because you're not overlapping that rule. And obviously hitting on 2's reroll 1s, 4 rerolls to wound, they convert so many attacks. Yeah, they're fairly, like, they're a bit expensive, and they do suffer to Overwatches. The key thing with them is just trying to get more than 1 activation, but with an army where you don't put too much in reserve, just having this unit in reserve to force your opponent to screen out is actually value in itself. And in every game I've used them, so I played them in my last event, went 2-1, and they did a lot of they got a lot of value. So I'm not going to complain about them. They killed more Scarab Occult Termies than Rogel Dawn did, so yeah. Explain that one. But yeah, I'm going to put them in S. I think they probably get top of S in all honesty. Also, the ability to double order themselves is actually pretty nice. I'll put Rough Riders very top. Yeah, happy with that. Yeah. So Commander, normal Dawn. Yeah, I mean they went up in points, but who even cares? I think I said this last time. They can go up again, and people are still going to take them just because like they're just extremely tough and they have good damage. Probably one of the most efficient damage dealing platforms in Guard, and until that changes, or their points become completely absurd, like the Rust Commander, they're gonna keep seeing use. I think the standard commander is still above the normal Dawn, just because of its ability. I think is better, but you can run both. They're good in every other detachment as well. You even see them in Recon just to bring some flat damage, which that detachment sometimes needs. But yeah, they're both S plus. Dare I say they're still the best you think in the Codex? Probably, because they probably are. I'm going to put the other Dawn probably here, because I think this, in my opinion, is a step above. And I prefer the Commander build, but sure. Bulgrin, yeah, on UKTC, sorry, can't speak. On UKTC, these things are a menace. There's very few units in the game that can actually wipe a 6-man in a single activation. It's only happened twice in probably 30 games of Grizzle I've ever played. One time was, I think it was like that conversion Votan unit, and the guy rolled like 10 fours, and used the sustain hits 2-strat on him, and I failed nearly every invuln. So once again luck based, and then the other time, I can't remember. I think it was Corn Berserkers. But yeah, they're super tough. T6 -1 damage for a pinball, and they do crazy damage. 24 attacks, rerolling, hitting on 2s, reroll 1s if they're ordered, which they will be. Strength 7, AP1 damage 2. Just chunks, loads. They're just quality. They're definitely S+, like for sure. Probably here on UKTC in all honesty. They're pretty powerful and cheap for what you get. 200 points for 6. Yes, please. And then Kazakin and Aquilons, the last two. So Aquilons, they're just your 6-inch deep strike thing. Only 6-inch deep strike in the codex. I think it's fairly easy to screen out 6 inches on UKTC. On GW might be a bit harder, not too sure, but they don't really do any damage. They're a bit overcost. But they're good at doing your secondaries for you. But it's just because they cost the same as Gaunts, and with these you're going to do 1 secondary, with Gaunts you're going to do 3 or 4. So yeah, I think they're good in Bridgehead. They're actually very good in Bridgehead. So I'm going to put them in the average tier, probably about here. And in combined, bringing them back with reinforcements to get another secondary or kill your opponent's chaff. Good, no complaints with it. Last of all, Kazakin. So these things are quality. They proc the Grizzled ability just with their ability. So lovely. 110 points for double plasma, double melter, and sniper, and plasma pistol, and D3 mortal wound melter mine. It's a lot. Yeah, they're just really good. Really good in transports because they give them scout. And firing deck, double plasma or double melter out the hatch on a chimera, also really good. One of the only units that can be double ordered, because obviously they can take an order and then order themselves, which does stack. So yeah, they're really powerful. They're just your key skirmish midboard unit in most matchups you're going to play. They're also S+ for sure. Probably about here, I think. They've been whiffing a little bit for me recently, but yeah, the game's luck based really, isn't it? It's all a dice game. So yeah, cool. That was it. Probably is about the same as my last one in all honesty. Not much has changed. I just thought I'd give it a little update. But yeah, once again, if you guys disagree, have any questions about Guard in general, drop it in the comments. Put your army list in the comments. I'm always interested in seeing them. Can give them you guys some little tips or some rates if you want on them. I've been doing pretty well in events recently. I've been on a streak of 2-1s at RTTs. Had a 4th place finish recently. Top 10 on my last 3 in a row, I think. So yeah, I think I'm like 3,000 on the ITC leaderboards or something at the moment. So yeah, doing well. Hopefully can keep doing well into 11th. I think I'm doing 1 GT before 11th, which should be good. But yeah, if you guys see me at any events or anything, say hello. I'll be playing Guard with 12 Bulgaren. Yeah. If you want to know my list or anything, just let me know. But thanks for taking time to watch this. Good luck in your games, guys. Cheers.